What's up, guys? Welcome back to Slapshot Sweethearts. I am here alone tonight. Shannon is out doing something. We have a lovely guest from the Seattle Kraken organization. Chanel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I feel like I definitely forced myself onto the show. So I feel bad for all your listeners, but this is very exciting for me. So
No, we're so excited to have someone from the Kraken with so much going on. But let's start, before we get into all of that, let's start with your background a bit, how you got here. I know you've been into sports your whole life, so this obviously seems natural, but let our viewers know kind of your path to where you are now.
I honestly, I think I've just been on Twitter for way too long. And it's come in handy because, as you said, like I've been immersed in sports forever. I grew up watching my brothers play, and I kind of just got forced into it as a bystander. So it was kind of a matter of time before it seeped into my life. I was not interested in any sports at all as a kid. I kind of despised them because I was like, I'm being dragged to these practices and games, and the weather's awful all the time because they usually picked more fall winter sports. None of them were ever inside, except when they were inside, it was freezing. So yeah, I've just kind of been living life, and at some point I kind of realized the lack of representation for women at first, especially in hockey, and then it kind of transitioned being like, not only do I not see enough women in the sport or covering the sport, but I don't even see any disability representation either. And I'm disabled, so it's kind of like all these things started coming to the surface. And last summer, I kind of felt like, just feeling a bit useless and just wanted to do something about, this sport that I love so much. And I didn't really know how to go about it because from what I could tell, there wasn't any job out there that really fit what I wanted to do as far as bringing accessibility to games. And so I kind of just wrote a couple articles about all the feelings I was having because I couldn't really put it into like a video or a quick thing. So eventually those articles surfaced, and my boss found me and she reached out to me, and then it was kind of just a little bit of madness ever since.
That's awesome. And I know you were a content creator before that with Pucker Up Sports. During college, you hosted your own podcast. How did you get involved with those aspects of this industry?
Yeah, so I got recruited sort of to work for Pucker Up, and I led more of the social media side of that because I'm not really a sports journalist, and I wasn't trying to head in that direction. I love like reading sports journalism, but I'm like I could never I could never do that. That takes a lot of commitment and time that I just don't think that I'm equipped for. But so I kind of applied to be a social media coordinator for them, and I did that for almost a year. And it was really great because I made some of my closest friends I think I'll ever have, and that alone made it worth it. And just like I don't know, it's just at the time it's just a blog for mostly directed towards women, and it was a women ran organization, so that was also kind of important to me. It wasn't like a top priority, but it was kind of like a special bonus. Um, and then I also kind of got recruited to work with this program called Galvanize by Laura Oakman, and that leans more on the NFL side, which I was a football fan first, so I also love watching football, and that sport is also a bit of a mess when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So it's especially again for women. So it's kind of like like pick your avenue, and I've been more of a committed hockey fan for the last like 8 years or so. So it was just kind of like I don't know. I feel a little bit more passion for this game because it needs more work, which is
Yeah.
confusing. I just had a conversation with my friend who's kind of trying to do the same thing I'm doing for the Jaguars, and I'm like, honestly, I feel like you're gonna get a lot faster than me because there's just certain things that the NFL has, as far as resources is concerned, that the NHL just doesn't. And no matter what, you're still doing good for whatever organization you work for because accessibility isn't really the priority right now. So,
Yeah, sports just focuses so much on, like, able-bodied people. It's not very diverse in the players, obviously,
mhm.
maybe a little bit in the back offices, like, all of that, but it's definitely so important about what you're working towards, and for everyone listening, can you tell them a little bit more about your role and what you guys are trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so I was hired as their intersectionality consultant, and I kind of, learned about that word last year, realized how much disability intersects with everything because disability doesn't care what you look like or where you come from. It affects so many different people with all different backgrounds. So for me, my intent in this sort of job that I kind of created for myself because there was no blueprint to give to my boss at the time. And I was initially only recruited to help them with the mobile app, which was going to take about 8 to 9 months from the first time we talked.
Mhm.
So it's kind of interesting looking at that now because we're a year after I got that initial message. It's kind of funny, the anniversary or whatever, like just happened. So it's been kind of weird to think about all that's happened in the last year because of this itch I had to actually do something with,
Mhm.
having someone actually want to bring accessibility as a priority to their organization, let alone in the NHL. So um, I basically was kind of thrusted into this role of just kind of, being in a bunch of these DEI meetings that we have and all types of things like from facilities operations to social media and our comm department. Like I'm essentially everywhere at this point. I feel like people are kind of tired of seeing me around.
No,
But
but it's so important.
yeah, I hope so. Um, so it's been really interesting to bring that perspective into these situations, and I like to point out that I'm not the only person that we consult with. We consult with a lot of really great organizations that center around disability and stuff like that. But I'm their like in-house quick go-to type person, and then if I'm because I can only give my singular opinion on something. If I don't feel comfortable with, just my opinion of it, I'll be like, we should, reach out to our other resource. But we've just done so many like little things that people just wouldn't really think about doing, like from the get go, and that's been really fun to accomplish with them. And it's kind of just stuff that I'm not even gonna get to enjoy from so far away. It's a lot of like in-game stuff like that. So it's gonna be really exciting to see a lot of that stuff come to life this year.
Yeah, it seems like Seattle's really put an emphasis on action between their arena, diversity and inclusion. They're really trying to start out as almost a role model for other organizations of how they can be more inclusive. Have you felt that through everyone in the organization as much as they kind of put it out there?
Absolutely. People and organizations make mistakes all the time, and like actual mistakes, not like really terrible choices that then label as mistakes. Like we are learning every day, but we hold ourselves accountable a lot, especially if something goes wrong or um, we're just learning all the time, but we do at the same time want to get it right the first time. So there are a lot of scenarios where we do a lot of research on something before we go into it because we want to do it right the first time. But we're also very open to learning from our mistakes and trying to make sure that we're on our toes about a lot of the stuff that goes on in our organization, especially when it comes to social media, because a lot of people are watching us and we want to be able to walk the walk. So um, I have seen it. I saw it, and then when I visited there recently, it was all kind of just like a whirlwind of like meeting everybody and like I felt pretty good about where I was before I went there, and now that I'm back, I find myself being even more like present and comfortable with everybody. So it was kind of weird because I thought I was okay, but then I realized I was even more comfortable after the fact. So it's kind of felt like a little bit strange, but a little bit cool too.
Yeah, that's amazing. We have to talk about your trip. Obviously, you got to announce the Kraken's pick from Hurricanes. What was that experience like? Like being there, being the person to announce that pick?
Yeah, in hindsight, it's kind of funny because like we rescued Morgan Geeky before stuff hit the fan. Um, yeah, I literally decided that I wanted to see if I could even go to the expansion draft like 3 weeks before it happened. Because I was just like, I don't know, from what I could tell, and it definitely was this. Like people were so busy, so I was like, I don't want to come, 3,000 miles if I'm gonna be in the way. So I was like, I need to really figure out like, is this a good time to come? Like, am I gonna be in the way of everything or whatever? So I ended up calling my boss, and I was like, I'm considering coming, but please, like straight up, tell me if it's gonna be like impossible for me to be there, and I'll, come later. I'll come in October or something, or earlier, or later, whatever. Um, and he was like, no, this is actually the perfect time for you to come. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, kind of expecting him to be like maybe try again in August or whatever. So I was really shocked. I'm being dead honest. Like I was like, okay, I was kind of hoping he'd say no because this is a big trip. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of organizing on my end. So, um, I just I just decided to go, and then like from that day after, I'm like booking flights and hotels and all this other stuff that was so messy at the time. Um, and then like a week before we were getting ready to go, I got an email that was like, "Hey, do you want to announce a pick? You're gonna do it with the Washington Wild, which is a youth girls hockey group." And I was like, "Oh, like." I was
Did you
like,
not just like freak out?
I was like, I think I did. I honestly don't even know what went through my mind because
Just like blacked out a little.
I definitely blacked out a little bit. I was like, "Are you sure I'm the right person? Like, what?" Um, it was so weird, and like I am not really this like hippy dippy person or whatever, but I had been doing like manifestation boards or whatever, like vision type stuff for a couple months out of this year, and like I would write on it like expansion draft, like on like a couple of them, and like thinking about it, and then like a trip to Seattle, whatever, like whatever.
Yeah.
Not
We
really
do that
thinking
all the
too
time
much
over
about
here.
it. I'm like, but now I'm like looking back on it, I'm like, I did this to myself. And let me tell you, it was the most stressful 30 seconds of my life. Like,
You're like, everyone is watching me.
I had to not tell myself that. I literally, like, remember just being like, don't think about it. Don't think about how many people. Don't think about it. Just pretend like it's just this, like, 2,000 or however many in this park that you're at right now. Like, do not think about what else is happening during this.
Yeah.
Like, it was actually nerve wracking. And I like grew up doing like theater, and I was one of those kids. Thankfully, I stopped before middle school, so it was like I got out just in time. But I never had like that bad a stage fright before, and I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah.
We had a rehearsal, which was just me and the production team, like both the Kraken and ESPN, and that was weird. Um, yeah, it was a lot. I couldn't eat the whole day. It was such a weird thing. I don't know.
The
I've
top of
never
the stomach a
experienced
little.
it. Yeah, I was like, let me not barf on TV. Like,
Yeah.
let me just not do that. So then after it was over, like we went to one of my colleagues' house and like ate burgers on his roof, and it was like the best burger I've ever had because they literally hadn't eaten for like a whole day. I'm like, what is wrong with me? I'm never doing that again. And I kept telling people that, and everybody at work was like, no, you did so good. Like you didn't even mess up or anything. And then everybody's like, you said the right team, and I'm like, but that was the easy part. Like, at least, I mean, his name, thank God, too, is really easy to say.
At least it wasn't one of those like wild ones.
Because there were a couple of those.
consonants.
Yeah, there were a couple of those names, and I just remember like looking at the list, like when it was starting, when we were like wrapping up, and I'm like, I really did look out with getting like geeky out of all of them. Like, thanks God. Like one time you didn't play me, but it's fine. It was crazy.
That's amazing. So last question, part of this historic moment, new team, first year, what are you most excited for this season?
Oh my gosh. So much of it. I think the one thing, at least for me as a fan, I've gone to a bunch of Bruins games. I feel like, is Shannon the one that's the Bruins fan?
Yeah.
Of course she's not here. She would understand. But it's been really interesting. I'm in a DEI group that's like social comms and game pres, and game presentation is one of like I feel like the least known categories in this sport, and that's literally like all the intermission stuff you guys see, like the hype videos before puck drops, like all this stuff that you just don't really think about, and it's all the theatrical stuff, the Golden Knights, like it's all that stuff. And that's the part that I'm excited for everybody to see because I don't even know what that's gonna look like. I know like a little bit of what's going on. We get a taste of it sometimes, but they have not spoiled the whole thing for us, which has been kind of exciting for me as a fan because I'm like, I mean, I don't know what it's gonna be like, but I know it's gonna be electric. So I think that if you get to catch a game, or if like some stuff gets shown on TV, I'm sure like one of the first games there's gonna be footage of like the whole thing. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, I think it's kind of like the stuff that just people don't really know about, like game press and the behind the scenes stuff. And yeah, it's really just watching all my friends' work come to life, like all these months of preparation and late hours and all these things. Like I'm excited for them.
Yeah, it's finally time to see it all come to fruition.
Yeah.
Well, we're super excited. We got to chat with you tonight. So pumped to see the Kraken season come to life. Obviously, our pregame show is going to be amazing.
I know.
But so happy we got to talk with you. Let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
I'm Chanel37 everywhere. I lucked out that one of our players picked 37 as their number. Hopefully, I like them as much as the 37 that I actually is for, but we'll see. That remains to be seen. But yeah, I'm so grateful that you guys let me come on your show, even though I basically invited myself. So
no, we've been so excited for this. Trust me. But guys, this is another episode of Slash Shot Sweethearts. Make sure you stick around, see what's next. We have so much more coming up this week, all off season, so don't miss a thing. We will see you soon.